One of my favorite Vikings of all time is the fierce Viking warrior of Rollo. He took Normandy in present-day France, and his legacy is one of the greatest ever among Vikings, really. And since I work with DNA and history research, I worked for 7 years to try to open the tomb of his closest relatives to find some skeleton remains that could tell us more about him. It took 7 years, and the problem was we finally got the tomb opened, and the skeletons were in lead boxes, which is not good for DNA. We had a huge problem finding something that we could use, and only actually 2 weeks ago we were able to hand the last remains in after some complications along the road in Copenhagen. So check it out. So we're in beautiful Copenhagen, Denmark. I'm on my way just over here to the DNA lab. These two guys. This is the actual last remaining pieces of skeleton, and hopefully we'll get DNA out of this. Richard I, Duke of Normandy, grandson of Rollo, and Richard II, his son. However, Richard I, we did C14 on this, and it's actually 2,300 years old. So it can't have been Viking or Norman. It must have been Celtic, some kind of chieftain, because it's even pre-Roman. So we'll see. We better hand it in, because it's going to be valuable, even though it's not Viking. So, this is of course not Richard I, Duke of Normandy. We must be, I mean, it's an important relic, obviously, since it stayed for such a long time in this monastery, or at least this time. And we know this was a tall fella at the time, really tall, and his right arm was longer than his left arm. So that means he was a swordsman, and he also spent a lot of time on the horseback. So probably a Celtic chieftain, I presume, in this pre-Roman age of present-day Normandy. So we're going to go over there now and hand this in and see how it goes. So there you have it. This is the last remains. It got lost on the way, actually, because I got these two remains in the mail to my home here in Flora, and some kids went to my mailbox because for some reason this professor has sent it to me by mail, and they took it because they were bored. It was Easter time. It was pranks. And I found it 4 weeks later in the bush of my neighbor, really well hidden or thrown away. But now it's in the DNA lab in Copenhagen. And Rollo, if you're like me, if you buy this history on Rollo, this prehistory, that he was the same as the Norwegian fierce warrior Gangerolf, like the Norse sagas state, then this is where he would sail down once he had to leave Norway and get out of here, because Norway was united under one king, and his father, Rollo's father, was a good friend of this king, but for some reason they didn't get along at all. So he had to leave, and he left for the British Isles and pillaged and did all this stuff that the great heathen army did at that time. But he ended up, after sailing out of here over to England in that direction, and Ireland, and he ended up then in Normandy. And he's of course depicted now in this current TV show Vikings on HBO. I love the show, but there's so many inaccuracies that it's ridiculous, and maybe I should do a YouTube video to tell you guys a little bit more about Rollo and who he was, and also about this competition between the Danish and the Norwegian historians on which tradition of his prehistory is the right one. And now maybe with DNA we can find out. So let's hope so, at least for one of the two skeleton corpses, or skeleton remains, because the other one, as we know, was far too old. So it's this short update. Hope you like it. Comment if you want, and I'll respond and tell you more about the progress here. And sure, let's see.